This is part 3 of a new era for deep space exploration and development. An ambitious and sustainable strategy. The extension of an American presence beyond Earth orbit in concert with commercial and international partners will be one of the most significant undertakings in human history. It will require a whole-of-government approach to develop the necessary capabilities, a conducive regulatory environment for private investment and operations, and diplomatic engagement to create international partnerships with existing and emerging spacefaring states. Although NASA is and will remain the leader for U.S. government space exploration efforts, other departments and agencies will have increasingly important roles in space. Nearly every United States government department and agency has potential equities in the utilization and development of space. The National Institutes of Health, the National Science Foundation, and the National Institute for Standards and Technology already support research on the International Space Station. The Department of Energy will be critical to the development of space nuclear power systems such as fission reactors on the Moon and Mars, as well as space nuclear propulsion systems that may carry crews to Mars. The Department of Transportation will provide efficient and responsive commercial space launch and re-entry regulations. The Department of Commerce will be the lead government advocate for growing space commerce both on Earth and in space. The Department of Interior will help leverage its terrestrial experience in mining and other relevant areas to identify and manage the private use of resources. The Department of State will lead diplomatic efforts to enhance stability in outer space through transparency and confidence-building measures, guidelines for responsible behavior in outer space based on U.S. best practices, and bilateral and multilateral instruments that reflect U.S. values and policies. Through its public diplomacy activities, the Department of State can help convey and advance U.S. space goals, objectives, and plans with foreign countries. By accelerating the commercialization and industrialization of space, the United States will grow the sphere of human activity beyond the Earth, forge new capabilities for sustainable expansion into the solar system, and provide benefits for enhanced life and commerce for all of humanity to enjoy. This expansion will occur over decades and build on the experience of more than 60 years since the start of the space age. The roles of government and the private sector will change as technologies, costs, and markets evolve. Space activities that require government support and infrastructure today can become market-driven tomorrow. Even where government remains the sole or primary source of demand, commercial contracts for goods and services can be used to deliver results at lower cost and higher efficiency. In areas such as scientific exploration, where there may be no market incentives, the government will continue to play a leading and pioneering role, while seeking to leverage and find synergy with commercial capabilities. Where space resources, broadly defined, are at stake, the private sector will likely be the more efficient exploration leader. and the government should take actions to support such activities. In contrast to the Apollo program, a strategy for space exploration and development in this new era does not end with a single event, such as humans landing on the moon or reaching the surface of Mars. An ambitious and sustainable strategy should be aligned with enduring national interests, be affordable, and be technically sound. To that end, there are three major areas of effort in going from low Earth orbit to the moon and then to Mars. Commercialization of low Earth orbit, returning to the moon to stay, and extending a human presence to Mars using the lessons learned from and resources gained by the exploration and development of the moon. First, commercialization of low Earth orbit. As the United States leads humanity in deep space exploration, a long-term presence in low Earth orbit will remain vital. Using the International Space Station and the Space Shuttle, humans working in low Earth orbit have shown their effectiveness in technology development and testing, crew training, and scientific research. However, the International Space Station has a finite lifespan, and the United States and our international partners do not wish to build a duplicate of this unique million-pound facility. Instead, a variety of future space stations in diverse orbital locations, commercially owned and operated, will succeed it. Removing regulatory barriers for the private sector to pursue revenue generation activities and conduct research in microgravity, and allowing companies that invest in such activities to be able to fully retain their intellectual property, is paramount to building a pipeline of research and development in low Earth orbit. The United States government will continue to be a major customer, or even an anchor tenant, of new low Earth orbit stations, which will be necessary to facilitate an increasing range of activities devoted to non-NASA government and non-governmental customers. Commercial orbital platforms of the future, some of which will be human-tended, will be present in Earth orbit and potentially around the moon to facilitate advancements in fundamental science, space communications, propellant depots, and research and development facilities, including astronaut training and human health research. Such stations will help provide alternative concepts of operations and in-space manufacturing capabilities that can facilitate the pre-positioning of assets to offset costly terrestrial launch requirements for future missions to the Moon and Mars. Part 2, returning to the Moon to stay. The Moon is closer to Earth than any other planetary body, and thus the logistics and transportation systems associated with missions to the Moon are more feasible, both technically and economically, than those required for a direct human mission to Mars. In addition, lunar exploration will reduce overall risks for Mars through the development and demonstration of new space systems necessary to operate on a planetary surface. In contrast, a present-day human mission to Mars would be exceedingly risky and expensive. With current propulsion capabilities, a one-way journey to Mars requires up to 8 months of deep space travel, with round trips exceeding 2 years. Although some private entrepreneurs might accept the inherent risks of deep space and systems reliability, if an emergency occurs during some phases of flight, it may not be possible for the crew to return safely. Entry, descent, and landing on Mars for heavier crewed vehicles have never been demonstrated and will require significant testing and precursor cargo landings prior to the first human mission. The multi-year duration of a Mars mission requires mitigation of harmful effects from radiation and reduced gravity in ways that are not yet fully understood. As meaningful human lunar surface operations begin, the length of stays, variations of activities conducted, size of facilities, and number of habitants can increase. With the help of advanced research and development on Earth and in low Earth orbit, the next lunar explorers will use longer-lasting and more reliable means of habitation, life support, power generation, transmission, storage, surface transportation, and resource extraction and utilization. Surface mobility will enable broader exploration, and reusable vehicles will ferry astronauts and cargo between the lunar surface and the lunar gateway. Moreover, the development and use of interoperable commercial and international partner systems will be a critical part of lunar activities from the beginning. Leveraging experience gained through lunar surface operations under the Artemis program, future Mars missions will utilize in situ resources, regenerative environmental control and life support systems, nuclear power generators, and pressurized rovers. These same systems are required for the lunar surface and will be demonstrated there first. A crewed lunar field station growing from the Artemis base camp on the Moon will demonstrate these and other capabilities necessary to take the next giant leap to extend a human presence to Mars while enabling unprecedented human and robotic lunar exploration. Lunar regolith, especially areas containing water ice at the poles, has yet to be fully characterized, but we know it harbors resources that can provide energy, life support, and spacecraft propellant. Learning how to extract, process, and use these resources will enable explorers to reduce the mass required to support lunar and subsequently Martian logistics. This ability to partially and perhaps one day fully live off the land will be integral to a sustained presence on the Moon and Mars. In addition to technical rationales, the Moon is also an important strategic and political destination. Ensuring the United States and its partners maintain a presence in areas of strategic importance is crucial to safeguarding our ability to operate anywhere in space, from low Earth orbit to the lunar surface to Mars. American astronauts left the last boot prints on the Moon almost 50 years ago. No other nation has ever landed humans on a celestial body, and few other nations have even been able to send robots successfully to the lunar surface. Being able to participate in lunar exploration and development is immensely challenging, yet feasible, for other spacefaring nations. Thus, it is attractive to them and an opportunity for the United States to foster a more secure and stable regime for space activities. Part 3. Extending a human presence to Mars. Mars is the next destination following the demonstration of a sustainable lunar surface presence. Robotic exploration programs have found that the Martian surface, like the Moon, contains many of the necessary resources to sustain a long-term human presence. Mars shows evidence of high concentrations of solid water ice across most of its surface, and an atmosphere that, although thin, can be used to produce vital resources, such as propellant, without complex regolith mining and extraction equipment. Many of the same systems developed for resource extraction and use on the Moon can be adapted for Mars. Discoveries and advances made on the Moon in the coming years will heavily influence the design of crewed missions to Mars. These factors include questions about the availability and cost of propellant in space, the feasibility of in situ resource utilization, in-space manufacturing and assembly systems, and advanced space nuclear propulsion. Work over the next decade in low Earth orbit and on the Moon should focus on how to reduce drastically the cost and complexity of human missions to Mars, while increasing the likelihood of success, safety, and sustainability. The initial and long-term exploration and development of the Martian surface will likely mirror lunar exploration in many ways. For example, robotic missions to pre-position resources will be a necessity for the success of the first and subsequent crewed missions. These resources might include pressurized rovers, habitation modules, supplies, and an ascent vehicle. Local resource utilization, power generation, and other means of self-sustainment will be critical for human missions to establish any long-term presence on Mars. If the United States can establish a long-term human presence on the Martian surface, it will have demonstrated the technology and expertise to begin to explore other destinations safely. Further exploring deep space, finding and utilizing resources, and ensuring a conducive environment for the United States and like-minded countries to peacefully explore and develop the solar system will help to permanently secure American interests and values in the space domain. The potential for deep space science. The first Apollo samples and geophysical data collected on the Moon remain scientifically interesting after more than 50 years. However, these initial investigations across areas smaller than the National Mall in Washington have generated vast new questions for future explorers to help answer. Great potential exists for conducting unique scientific investigations in deep space, using both human and robotic endeavors. In addition to new discoveries regarding the evolution of the Moon and the terrestrial planets, Apollo's scientific results alone offered unprecedented insights into the early history of the solar system and Earth itself, the origins of life on Earth and potentially on Mars, and the history of the Sun and its interaction with the Earth. A continued human presence on the Moon, and eventually Mars, will provide opportunities for fundamental advances in fields ranging from observational and radio astronomy to materials science and biology, as articulated through numerous community assessments by the National Academies, the Lunar Exploration Analysis Group, and the Mars Exploration Program Analysis Group. Education and the U.S. workforce. The exploration and development of space is a multi-generational endeavor. The future workforce needs of the United States and its international partners are ever-changing. The necessary skills encompass virtually every scientific, technical, and engineering discipline, as well as leadership and management skills for the highly complex, multidisciplinary projects inherent to the space industry. Entirely new skills will also be needed that may have terrestrial analogies, but that cannot be fully duplicated on Earth. During the Apollo program, astronauts had to learn how to land a vehicle on the moon that could not operate in the Earth's gravity. Similarly, the skills needed to operate a lunar or Martian base have been researched and analogs have been tested, but we will not truly know what skills are needed until we actually try. Space exploration and utilization directly supports the long-term strategic interests of the United States. As such, developing and maintaining a skilled workforce, one that is diverse and inclusive, to perform these long-term exploration and development activities is also of strategic interest. Ensuring the country's educational system is equipped to provide the skills necessary to perform this work is critical to the quality of life of our citizens, to our ability to be internationally competitive, and to our ability to ensure the security of the nation and the world. Our ability to lead in space exploration and development will depend on how well the United States is able to educate, train, and employ future generations of American space workers. Current shortages of trained employees in select areas, like systems engineering, computer engineering, and cybersecurity, are a warning that the United States may lack the incentives and mechanisms to prepare the workforce the nation needs. Although space exploration and development is and should continue to be an international endeavor, the dual-use nature of many space technologies and capabilities means the United States needs educated and trained Americans to work on the most advanced space capabilities. There is a high rate of international students receiving graduate engineering degrees in the United States and then returning to their home countries. This is a tremendous testament to the quality of top-level U.S. universities and is beneficial to U.S. universities. But the United States needs to remove barriers and create incentives for U.S. students to pursue these degrees as well. Also, for those U.S. students who are obtaining these degrees, the U.S. space industry needs to do a better job of attracting top talent, for which they often compete with other industries. Some of the most powerful motivations for students to pursue technical degrees are the prospect of being challenged to excel, the opportunity to make a difference in the world, and meaningful participation in a great enterprise. As the United States seeks to educate and engage the Artemis generation, we need to not only describe existing technical challenges, but also to illustrate the opportunities and pathways by which new generations will personally experience and contribute to this singular adventure. The exploration of the moon and Mars, beginning with the Artemis program and stretching forward to the development of the inner solar system, has the potential to motivate future generations of Americans as well as international students to make that vision of tomorrow a reality.